We're here today to talk about our new business collaboration. So we've worked together for 2 years now and we're starting to bring on some new products as we grow. But I wanted to talk to you today about how Conveyancing has expanded and grown and the reason for what you're doing. So how did Conveyancing start?
So we started 4 years ago by starting a law firm.
Yep.
This came around out having built tech in the conveyancing industry since about 2015. We had managed to speed it up a little bit, a couple of weeks, but to be honest, there was, in the grand scheme of things, we took about 2 weeks off the average time. We felt there was probably a better way of doing things, but in order to find out how we could do that, we really needed to experiment with different ways to run a conveyancing case. So we went and got our law license and we started to sell some houses. And over the past 4 years, we've built various tech. Some of it didn't work, some of it has worked. We've managed to halve the time that it takes to do conveyancing now.
Yeah.
And we're on our way to automating some of that. We think this year we'll have our first automated remortgage. We'll definitely have our first automated transfer of equity. The hardest bit will obviously be sale and purchase. That is the most difficult one to actually automate. But if we can reach those milestones this year, then next year we might be able to do it.
What I want to know, because obviously I work in a different part of the industry, I don't understand why conveyancing has a reputation for being so slow. Like, what is the problem with conveyancing?
So it's actually got slower over the last 20 years. If you speak
Why is
to
that?
most conveyancers, they'll tell you, a remortgage would take 10 days around early 2000s. Now it takes around 60 days. An average sale or purchase will take you about 150. There's a number of reasons. Conveyancing used to just be about the legal matters. Now conveyancers are expected to be experts in environmental issues, planning issues, water and drainage issues. So the things that a conveyancer needs to do has ballooned, and that's why you see this process, which on the surface looks like a property lawyer drafting a contract and transacting on a purchase. In reality, they're doing about 50 things behind the scenes to make sure that what you're buying is all kosher.
So what is it that Conveyancing do to alleviate those pain points for the seller, buyer, etc.?
So if there's about 50 different things that need to happen behind the scenes to buy or sell a property, what we've managed to do with the technology is take, let's say, about a third of them and automate them. So it takes a lot of the work that is needed to start a conveyancing process and does it up front. It also manages to avoid some of the pitfalls that usually happen by finding these problems early and addressing them early. And by using tech right from the outset, we've managed to get it so when it actually gets to the conveyancer, they can hit the ground running.
What is the end goal of Conveyancing? Is it going to change the industry?
It's to make it so that you can buy or sell a property in a day. That's where we
In
want to
one
get
day?
to.
And how long do you think it will be until you get to that stage?
I think it'll take about another 2 to 3 years. The technology to do it isn't actually the difficult part. The hardest bit is the mindset of people in the industry.
Which is where we're trying to collaborate as businesses.
Exactly.
Because obviously with Viewber, we have those relationships already with a lot of our clients. And Viewber is all about being this one-stop shop for all property services. So I think as we've grown, it's a good partnership where actually part of the process is, conveyancing is throughout. What do you think clients, as in estate agents, brokers, what is their biggest fear with transitioning over to like a new way of doing things?
So I understand why estate agents and brokers particularly struggle with conveyancing. So, we've having recently spoken with a couple of people in that industry. Some people have unfortunately damaged their reputation by recommending a conveyancer, which has then made the whole transaction so much more difficult to see through to the end. So some people, some agents, some brokers will say, I'd rather not recommend a conveyancer and have that damage my reputation. And I can understand why. There are some very poor poor conveyancers out there, unfortunately. And the process is very, very bad. Where do you see Viewber in the industry?
As being the provider of all services relating to property. So being that one-stop shop from the start of the journey right through to the end, through to completion, working with other suppliers in the industry as well. So actually making it more of a collaboration and just making it really, really user-friendly for estate agents to, or anybody in the industry really from different sectors, to just go onto our kind of portal, select the service that they want, and then let the system do the hard work for them. So just that there's one place that everybody can go to get a really, really good end-to-end service.
So I guess traditionally, though, people would have hired admins or agents to work in their branches. How does someone typically transition from that model to having Viewber as the backbone of their services?
I think the government are making it harder for people to have employed people, employed staff. Obviously, the NI going up as from the 1st of April. A lot more like employment laws. So I think people are getting nervous around kind of making staff permanent. But I also think it's an on-demand service. So you can over-resource sometimes. You might have a busy period. We all know that the market fluctuates. So you could have, December is usually particularly quiet. And what that means is that people are overstaffed. Whereas with Viewber, they can plan and pick resource according to kind of how busy they are. I think a lot of people worry that, particularly for the core services that we offer, that it's not going to be like a like-for-like service. But you're a client of ours, so what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we would typically end up using someone different for EPC, floor plan, viewings, all these different services. So working with you has helped because it's just allowed us to be able to use all of those services from one place rather than having to, find a local photographer, find an EPC surveyor. So yeah, that's been particularly helpful.
I think if you look at the journey from, an end user of the process of what they've got to do. So a vendor goes to an estate agent and would like to market their property from the very beginning, and, then they go and view the property, they want to put an offer in, that's when we need to get conveyancing. So the estate agent can do everything from the Viewber portal. And obviously it's not going to be our Viewber members doing the conveyancing. So how does the conveyancing work at Convey Next? Is it panel or?
So there is a panel. There's about 17 different conveyancers that use the technology that speeds up the process right now. So for an end user, for a vendor or a buyer, they will be able to receive a quote that's accurate based on their situation. So if it's a leasehold, for example, it will work out exactly what the fees will be.
With the buyer stuff, obviously at the moment, a lot of companies make money from commission on conveyancing for sellers. Is it the normal thing to kind of make commission off of the buyers?
It's huge. In the mortgage world, that's where all of their commission from conveyancing is.
Yeah.
It's a balance, though. I appreciate everyone doesn't, wants a secondary revenue stream, but they also don't want a bad service. So what we've tried to do is really focus on getting good quality conveyancers that use our technology. Mm-hmm. Probably not the factory firms that can deal with the volume that you typically see, but by having the technology behind the cases, it allows them to handle a bit more volume. So you get good quality conveyancers with the tech to support them to speed up the process. And
that doesn't impact the amount of conveyancing requests you can take on?
There's obviously a capacity with every conveyancer because it is a service business, but as we continually apply more technology, it means that the amount of time required per case goes down. So our capacity continually grows.
And what are the kind of main focuses for you and, the rest of the team at Convey Next in the next 6 months? What are you really focusing on?
So our focus is on continually automating different parts of the process to speed it up. One example is when you sell a property, usually, so if you go to auction, they'll do what's called a legal pack. They'll prepare everything up front. So they'll do a check of all the land registry deeds. They'll order the searches. So they'll contact the local authority, the environmental agency.
That takes a long time, the searches.
The water search. And then a conveyancer will put that all in a pack along with the contract, and that will go to auction. With these changes that are coming with material information, there's going to be a need for more information to be upfront. So, a private treaty sale through an estate agent will need to provide more information up front at the point of marketing. That's not usually been done. Usually, you would instruct a conveyancer once you have an offer. Yeah. That's quite a poor way of doing it. It's been the way that we've always done it, but now there's an opportunity to do things differently. So when you go to market with the property and they arrange the viewings with you and they do the photographs, etc., that's the time to engage with the conveyancer.
Yeah.
So what they should do is propose to the client, look, engage with this conveyancer now. They'll be able to do all of the preparation up front. That approach usually takes at least a month or two off the transaction time. Because you're going to market with a fully prepared property, it means the buyers know what it is that they're buying. It also allows their conveyancers to look at the property and see any potential flaws early so that they can be prepared for what sort of work is going to be needed to be done once an offer is accepted.
And do you see that yourself as like one of the main competitors for legal packs? Are you faster? Are they better quality? Like, what is a unique selling point for Conveyancing legal packs?
So we've been focusing on getting the technology to speed up the whole process of the legal pack. Now, speed is one element of it. It's not that it has to be done in 24 hours. We can do them in 24 hours, but the focus has been on making sure it doesn't affect you taking that property to auction. So when you do the sale, you've got someone who wants to take it into the auction. You know the date that you want to take it in.
Yeah.
What's typically happening is that's the point where they're engaging with a conveyancer. So many times the conveyancer will turn around just a week or a couple of days before the auction and tell people, actually, you can't take this to auction because there's a problem. And that problem might be something that comes up from the land registry that means that it's not sellable. And those that can waste a lot of time. Obviously auctioneers spend time arranging visits, registering bidders, only to find out that actually they can't put it through the auction. So that's one benefit of using us for legal packs, is we'll do those title checks within 24 hours and be able to tell you whether it's ready to roll or not. At least that way you know whether you can put it into the auction or not.
Okay. And that's something that no one else is offering at the moment?
So a lot of conveyancers deliver it as a service, but they won't be able to handle that at scale. And also, everyone's got a good conveyancer that they might know, but there's only one person.
So I think that's one of the biggest fears for a lot of people. Obviously, Viewber works with 90% of the auction industry, if not more. And I think what we've seen is a lot of, buyers, sellers, they've all got their own solicitors, and it goes hand in hand that you use a legal pack that is provided by your solicitor. But if we're talking about speed and wanting to improve things, could a seller use your legal pack and their solicitor?
They could. Now, most people in conveyancing are generalists, so they'll deal with lots of different types of conveyancing. What we've really focused on is specialising for this particular world, so the auction world, being able to actually represent the seller and the buyer in the auction space.
Yeah.
So the conveyancers that end up doing the legal work know the process. They're a lot more efficient at the process, and they have the tech to back them on it.
So if you're representing the buyer and the seller, surely there's some benefits of the fact that you can talk to...
Huge benefits.
Yeah.
So both conveyancers will be using the technology that sits in between, and we know that they'll adopt everything that we give them, and all of the tech that we give them is designed to speed up the process.
So in an ideal world, let's just say, there's an auctioneer, they come on. Usually what happens with Viewber is we market all the properties and then we arrange all the open houses. So at that point, they've said, yeah, we need a legal pack on each one of these properties. It then would go through to Convey Next. And how much involvement, because obviously a lot of the problems is when you have too many people involved. So would the auctioneer or the auction company have to get involved, or would it be a simple case of you go direct to the seller, to the buyer, and go from there?
So the seller will complete what we call onboarding. They'll
Yeah.
go through numerous steps to get everything prepared for us to generate the legal pack. We typically do like a template special conditions with
Yeah.
each auctioneer, so we can modify them per case. So depending on whether there's a tenant, depending on whether the seller wants the buyer to cover their fees, etc., we'll
Yeah.
modify them. But usually we template it so that it can be generated every time automatically. And so the seller will complete the onboarding, and that's all they need to do. The next step is that we'll either be telling the auctioneer there's a problem and it can't go in the next auction, or we'll be uploading the legal pack.
And you say you can tell the auctioneer how quickly if there's a problem.
Yes, so that's the main thing, is that checking the land registry deeds immediately is the most important step. So we'll make sure that people are aware if there is a problem, such as the seller doesn't own the property. That happens
Yeah.
sometimes. Whether there's other people named on the title, which we need to include in the journey. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, people might not know this, but if someone dies and then they try and take it to auction, they might not have the legal documentation in order to represent the person who's died. So getting all of that tucked away and sorted out before we go and generate a legal pack is really important.
Providing that, everything's gone well, it goes to auction, they get a buyer come along. What's the process from there? So how does the auctioneer say, I've got a buyer, they want to use your conveyancing services?
So usually at the moment, every auctioneer will need to put into their system who the solicitor is anyway. And the moment they exchange, it will notify the conveyancer of the exchange. We'll then start communication with the other side and get the process rolling.
And what can usually hold that process up?
So there's a couple of things on the buyer side, really. So obviously, because it's exchanged, if we're talking traditional auction,
Yeah.
because it's already exchanged, the main two things that conveyancers are concerned about is one, when they go to check the legal pack and find out there's something severely wrong, mm-hmm. they're usually concerned about having that conversation with the buyer. It's quite a difficult one to turn around and go, you've actually bought something bad here. And so that's one reason why conveyancers are typically put off by representing buyers in auctions.
Right.
There's quite a lot that just say they don't do it at all.
Okay.
This is why having a good legal pack is really important. So the ones that we typically recommend to buyers, they understand our legal pack. They know that we basically get all the skeletons out of the closet.
Yeah.
They're aware of the issues before they go and exchange. So that alleviates a lot of the pain for the conveyancer on the buyer side, because at least they know the buyer's actually understood the issues. The other bit is source of wealth. So the requirements on us under a legal regulatory firm mm-hmm. are a lot higher, I think, than it is on the auctioneer to demonstrate where that money has been accrued. So not only where is it, so it's in this bank account, but how did it get there?
Yeah.
And that can be quite a challenge for conveyancers, because if that money's come from a source that requires a lot of investigation, because we're up against time, mm-hmm. we need to get to the bottom of that really, really quickly. And that's another reason why a lot of conveyancers will be put off by doing auction work.
Because of the risks.
Because of the risks.
And the hold-ups.
Now, there isn't usually actually, in reality, there's not much risk there. And a good, well-prepared legal pack mitigates half of that.
Yeah.
When it comes to the source of wealth, we've got technology that does those checks really quickly, and we can speed up that process. So the day it exchanges, we can get the buyer to go through our process to demonstrate where those funds were accrued. But when there is an issue with that, that's where having a panel can be really helpful. So as an example, very specific example, but this does actually come up. There is a law for Chinese residents that there's only a certain amount of money that they're allowed to take out the country.
Yeah.
If that source of wealth has come from China, they may well have broken the law. We don't know. Most UK lawyers won't know that well enough.
Yeah.
We're able to actually reallocate that case to a firm that has a good understanding of that space so that they can safely deal with it. Same with the Building Safety Act. Everyone's dealing with high-rise buildings at the moment
Yeah.
and finding loads of issues. Being able to make sure that the buyer is represented by a conveyancer who understands it and can actually do that work is really important, which is the reason why it's really good that we've got our technology in 17 different firms.
Yeah.
Because we can make sure the right specialisms are on the case.
So you're very tech orientated, and your vision is tech, obviously. Do you think that tech will eventually replace conveyancing, as in bums at desks, old school solicitors?
Not entirely, but we have the oldest property laws in the world.
Yeah.
They're there for a reason. They're designed to protect us, but that does mean they're very archaic. So it's quite complex, all of the laws behind buying and selling land. We will always need specialists in that. And what we're really focusing on is getting rid of all of the non-legal related admin. So there's nothing really wrong with the law and how and what conveyancers do in order to handle real problems. You know, if there's a boundary issue, if there's a requirement for an easement, those are things that conveyancers are really helpful for. All of the non-legal admin is just a waste of their time. It's a waste of the buyer's time and the seller's time. And that probably makes up for 80-90% of the transaction, to be honest with you. So we're really focusing on that.
90% tech.
Yeah. And I think there will be transactions where we'll be able to fully automate the whole process. It won't be everything, and there will always be issues that do come up on some of that work. But I think the bottom level of the market will be replaced with technology.
In how long?
Probably up to 7 years would be my guess. And, you know, I know everyone's seeing a lot of information about how AI is going to change the world. It probably will have quite a big impact. To be honest with you, you don't even need AI to optimize some of the processes in conveyancing now. There's already really clear set boundaries and rules on how to do property transactions. You can get quite a long way with just building rules-based technology that handles a lot of this stuff. So why do you think conveyancing fits into the Viewber portfolio?
Because it's needed in every property transaction, the same way, you know, 90% of the time a viewing is needed or some form of, you know, live WhatsApp call or something like that. So it is naturally part of the journey that estate agents take and need. It's always going to be needed. It's legislation. And I think we're established enough in the industry. We've got really, really good rapport with a lot of the leaders in the market. And it just makes sense from, you know, everybody wants an easy life, don't they? Like, we're all lazy, let's face it. So if somebody can just log on to a dashboard and get everything in one place. And, you know, what I think we need to be really clear about is we're not going to have Viewber members doing the conveyancing. That's not going to happen. This is a specialist service that we obviously have different partnerships with different suppliers, and Conveyanext is our supplier for legal packs and conveyancing. But the same with like EPCs. Yes, we've got our own energy assessors, but we also partner with other providers. So it just ensures that we can provide like an end-to-end service. It's on demand, and actually is almost like a 99% assurance that it's going to be delivered because we've got national coverage. This is more services outside of conveyancing, but I think it just fits in perfectly with what Viewber does, and it is all about our vision to be that one-stop, you know, company that covers absolutely everything in property. I don't think there's ever a day that is the same at Viewber, actually. Because you're dealing with all different types of people, aren't you? You're dealing with the viewer, you're dealing with the owner, the vendor rather, you're dealing with the buyer, the seller, the client as in the estate agent. So there's lots of different people involved. Okay, so I'm an auctioneer. I've got all my, regular sellers, regular buyers, the traders, etc. They all like their own solicitor. Why your legal packs? What is going to make such a difference to that end user? So not to me as the auctioneer, but to my client. What is going to be better about using this legal pack? Because that's what, as an auctioneer, I need to, everybody likes familiarity, and this is, I think, half of the problem, as you say, with conveyancing. It's not necessarily about people being adverse to tech, it's actually people like the comfort of what they already do.
So we've got data on over 10,000 transactions. It takes over 45 days for the conveyancers to get to the point where they are able to draft a pack. That's the average time for the industry. What we're proposing is much, much quicker legal pack, but more importantly, assurance that you can actually go to auction. That's the one thing we want to get done really, really quickly.
Headline it, assurance of going to auction.
Yeah.
But how many don't go to auction?
I would take a rough guess and probably say it's about 25%.
Okay. So people can comment and tell us if they think it's more or less.
Yeah, I suppose so.
We'll open up a can of worms.
Yeah. Next one is price. Actually knowing exactly what you're going to pay. Conveyance is notorious for stacking fees on fees on fees.
Yeah.
There's just one price.
Okay.
It's the 500 quid for the search pack, 1,400 if it exchanges for the legal fees. There's no long list of disbursements.
No
or
add-ons,
additionals.
Nothing else.
It's
okay.
just that.
So
makes it nice and simple.
We've got price, we've got assurance, and I would say the biggest thing is time.
Time, yeah.
Okay, so what are we aiming for?
3 days.
So a lot of people, 3 days, and a lot of people, we've experienced this already, kind of go, you're absolutely talking crap. There's no way you can get it back in 3 days. What's your response to that?
Using technology and good conveyancers, that's what we've really focused on. Part of the problem in conveyancing is not actually about automating or using AI to speed up the process. It's actually just deleting processes that don't need to be there. This industry has been built using archaic ways, and people learnt the way that their previous boss taught them. And no one's ever stopped to actually go, what processes do we no longer need anymore?
Yeah, it is definitely one of the industries that I would say is certainly a lot more reluctant to tech innovation than other industries.
Or just process optimization at all.
Streamlining, yeah.
Like, everyone experiences, like, one of the first things that conveyancers do, and this is the majority that still do this, is they send a welcome pack to you. The innovative ones send it via email.
Yeah.
The really innovative ones send you a link to do online. The most conveyancers still send it out in the post. And they still require you to wet ink sign a terms of engagement. They won't do any work until you've signed those terms. And that's just a rule that's lasted forever. You actually sit down with the regulator and go, what parts of this are really
because you
dictated
work
by you?
quite closely with the regulators, don't you?
Yeah, so we work with the CLC, and they're very open to change.
Yeah.
They give you really hard guidelines on what you can and can't do. They're really open to you going to them and saying, look, I've got this idea. What can I do? They'll give you the feedback. They understand your business. But Welcome Packs is a great example of that. There's no need to get wet ink signatures on terms of engagement. You click a button saying, I agree on your Apple terms and conditions, but we still expect people to wet ink sign terms of engagement in conveyancing. And the fact that no conveyancer does any work until that's signed, and given sometimes it's a wet ink sign, so you're waiting for it to come back to the office and then actually filed against the case, it can delay things by weeks just to get the case looked at. And there's the problem with knowing whether something can go to auction or not, is a lot of conveyancers won't even look at the title or the land registry deeds until all of that's done, only to find out that actually there's a problem, and that then blocks the auction. All the while, the auctioneer might have wasted weeks.
So why don't conveyancers always make that their first step to check the land registry?
Because there's this rule that you can't act for a client until they've agreed to your terms. And that's fair. I understand that. That comes from the handbook. But how we go about getting them to agree terms is one of the blockers. So I say, tech isn't really the only thing that matters here. Part of it is actually just deleting processes that we don't need to handle anymore. Nowhere does it say you need a wet ink signed terms of engagement, but we still proceed with this process. And some of them, there are some good conveyancers out there that have moved on from that, but even electronic signature isn't necessary. And so that's just one example of the many processes that get in the way of us actually getting to the real legal work. So the other benefit of our legal packs is that they're prepared in a way that the buyer can hit the ground running when they do exchange. So it's all designed to get all the skeletons out of the closet and explain to conveyancers in a way where they understand what work they need to do. We don't do it at the moment, but what we'd like to work with auctioneers on is we have the technology to do a full report that gives a breakdown of the land registry deeds and all the red flags in the searches, explain all of those things to a buyer as part of the legal pack. We'd even go as far to say, here's the things we know about the property that your conveyancer might be concerned about. Here's the inquiries that they would have raised for these, and here's our answers to those inquiries. We'd love to go that far, because if you can give someone that much assurance over what it is that they're buying, we're confident that that may even mean that people spend more at the auction in order to get that property. We had a great example of a property in Harrow, and it had a subsidence issue. It had a few issues in the searches. There was a couple of issues around how would you go about getting planning. What we were able to do is go to market with a full drawing of how to solve the subsidence. We had all of the answers to all of the inquiries that would have come up from that process. We valued the property at 400 grand. It ended up getting 460. And we're confident that that was because a lot of the property developers knew exactly what it was that they were buying. They knew exactly where the problems were. And that gave them a lot more confidence in bidding, because they could then price for themselves, how much would it cost me to solve those problems? When you don't know what all of the problems are, people then bake that into their offer and go, well, it could open a whole can of worms, and therefore I'm going to offer less. And having that approach, we're really confident does actually increase the amount of money that properties can get at auction.
If we were to summarise what the podcast is about, it is ultimately about Viewber and Conveyancing collaborating to offer legal packs. And at the moment, that's just to auctioneers that need that service.
Yeah.
Do you envisage everybody needing a legal pack eventually, with the way that legislation and upfront information is changing?
Some form of legal pack, yes. I think it's going to be really important this year for every agent to consider, how do I get sellers to engage with the conveyancer at the point of marketing? Yeah. So we incubate a small agency firm and law firm. We've got our own, and we demonstrate ways in which we go to market and speed up the process. In that estate agency, we have always got the title and the land registry deeds at the point of valuation, in fact. So we actually do a title check when we're valuing the property, which is a service that we can offer. That allows you to confidently talk to a seller and say, look, I've actually looked at the land registry deeds. I understand what it is that we're selling. You're going to have these hurdles. That can be a great opportunity for you to say to the seller, look, engage with this conveyancer now. They can prep these things. They can deal with these things now, so that whilst I'm dealing with the marketing, you can be fully prepared on the legals. Yeah. The key there is that when you show people around and you share all of these documents, you share the searches, you share all of the land registry deeds that you've prepared, the buyers can be more confident in what it is that they're actually buying. But when we actually go under offer, that's where the conveyancer can get that draft contract pack out the same day that you go under offer. So everyone's familiar with the process of generating a memorandum of sale, sending it to the buyer and seller. I'm sure a lot of agents that are seeing this are used to the pain of having to chase them just to see if the case is even open.
Yeah.
With working with us, we can be absolutely sure that that contract pack is going to be sent the same day we receive that memorandum of sale. That way, the clock's on. We know that process is now over to the buyer to get their inquiries back to us. And we've provided them with a full pack with everything that they're going to need in order to raise inquiries.
Legal packs, we think that eventually there will be for not just auctioneers, but everybody in the industry will have to have some form of upfront information. So you're encouraging estate agents to kind of persuade their sellers to get involved with the conveyancer from the get-go, from the marketing stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can be used as a real useful tool to help with conversion as well. If you're saying, once you instruct me on the marketing, we can get you going with the conveyancer. Remember, there's APIs and the ability to generate quotes automatically.
Yeah.
So that can run alongside the agent's experience. So they can have a quote. They can say, this is our recommended conveyancer. This is exactly how much it's going to cost you. There's no surprises that come along later.
Yeah.
They can then just simply hit the instruct button and off they go.
From an ease of use perspective, once a property is added onto that Viewber dashboard, which is always usually at marketing stage, that's when a quote can be triggered through our API that we've got set up. So actually, the agents are not reliant on somebody in the office, contacting you to get that quote.
Exactly.
It's all done.
And it's instant.
Yeah. And they're not obliged to go ahead
No.
with the quote or anything like that. Okay, so legal packs we've covered. Conveyancing. You've discussed that you can obviously represent the seller and the buyer, and actually it makes the process a lot more streamlined because you're both using the same technology and communication channels are easier, etc. Is there anything else you want to add on conveyancing? So what is your aim with conveyancing? It's to decrease the turnaround times, alleviate unnecessary process. A lot of people, as you say, this is a representation of their business. So if you're a high-end estate agency and you're referring a buyer or a seller to a conveyancer, that's a representation of your brand ultimately. So as much as it is about speed, it is about price, it is about quality, it is also about the service delivery.
Yeah.
So what can you say about, can people check in? Can they see what's going on?
Yeah. So there's complete transparency over the process. There's milestones which show you exactly where things are at. There's also the ability to see why something's held up. And that's particularly been helpful so far because we share them back to the estate agent or the broker. That's where I think there's been lots of value added where they can actually do something about those things a lot of the time.
What
and
would be an
just
example of?
One great example is just if the seller hasn't completed the property information form.
Okay.
That's something that, we've had agents that are brilliant and they'll actually go, do you know what? The client can't do that online. I'm going to sit them in the office with me and we're going to walk through it together and I'm going to make sure that that's emailed to you today. It's fantastic. It helps people get through these barriers. We've seen it a lot of the time where, brokers have found out that we haven't received the mortgage offer. They have the ability to get on the phone to some lenders and understand why hasn't that happened yet. So being able to be transparent on where that transaction's at has been particularly helpful because I know all brokers and agents want to be helpful.
Yeah.
And I think in general, they probably feel like conveyancers resist their help and keep them out of the loop. We want to change that. We see the value that they can add to the process and we know where they can be helpful and where perhaps they can't. So, when it comes to a legal issue, fair enough, there's probably not much they can do there. But everything else that's in their remit, they can be really helpful and we want to be transparent on where a case is at. So there's full transparency on where the case is at. There's a lot of flex on who it is you want to recommend, who you want the case to go to. So there's a lot of capability in setting that up, but a lot of it is all built into the system. So it can figure out who is going to be the best person to do this case.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that come into that. You have shared ownership properties, high-rise buildings, you have buy-to-let buyers, you have overseas clients, that's a big one. All of these variables can determine who could do that case. And so you'll see a lot of the time people go and get a quote from a high street conveyancer only to be told 4 weeks later, oh, we can't act for you.
Deal with it, yeah.
This is all baked into the beginning. So we know we can hit the ground running with this conveyancer from the start. And that helps them to be assured that if they do recommend someone, it is going to be the right person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the tech obviously helps speed that process up. So that helps a lot because obviously the quicker you get to the problems, the quicker you can solve them. So that's part of the issue. And then being able to transparently share with that broker or that estate agent, this is the thing that's holding us up, and this is how long it usually takes us to deal with this, is exactly where we've been able to set expectations a little better.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to say, there's a problem with this, and this usually takes 4 weeks, that sort of gives everyone the clarity they need in order to work around it.
I do think some people are going to be very curious as to why we've partnered together as businesses.
Yeah.
And I know it's a question we've been asked previously. And I think for us, it's obviously part of our expansion and our growth is to look at different areas of property services. So for us, the natural step is to look at, kind of not your core services and go into a direction of conveyancing and legal packs. Our vertical is predominantly, one of our biggest verticals is auctioneers. So that is something that we know is needed in that sector. And for you, we've spoken about you're not like an in-your-face marketing person. I've had a go at you before about your branding. I've had a go at you. I've said, why you're not doing SEO stuff, but you have always said the product talks for itself.
Yep.
You're not one to be like in the limelight, but ultimately that's where Viewber comes in that we've already got those established relationships, contacts, and it fits into the process of actually the API is already there. It can almost start the process at marketing stage, which is what you want because it helps with the speed. So from our perspective, it's like an introduction, a referral, affiliate, whatever you want to call it.
It fits the process and you understand our vision.
Yeah.
I think that's most important, is having spoken to you and people in the team.
Yeah, and Ed's very understanding of conveyancing and the pain because obviously he's been in the industry for ages.
I think everyone's used to just how difficult it is now and fatigued as well. I sense that a lot of people are fatigued with how it's just not.
And we do actually feel the pain of the problems with conveyancing, or particularly with auctions, because we might have everything prepped ready for an auction date, it's gone live in the brochure, etc., and then actually that needs to be cancelled, and then it has a knock-on effect. We have disgruntled Viewber members that have assigned part of their diary to carry out that appointment. So for us, it actually makes life easier as well. It's not just about kind of offering all services, it fits in with the end-to-end journey.